Hey, y'all, Patrick James.
John Double Tap Britain.
And we're here with Into the Fray. And today, we're going to talk about idiocracy in America. Stay tuned, and let's get her on.
There you go.
All right, so, John, the most recent ridiculous statement that we've heard, I know there's been so many of them. I have to even clarify that.
Right.
It's just ridiculous, but I'm sorry, U.S. Rep Emmanuel Cleaver, disrespect.
Minister Emmanuel Cleaver.
Right, I shouldn't be making fun of the beaver, of Mr. Cleaver. But Ward, dang it. Mr. Representative, that would be gender.
Yep.
House Rep person, Emmanuel Cleaver, a United Methodist minister, former mayor of Kansas City, Missouri. That's Missouri.
Missouri,
Kansas.
to those from Missouri.
Missouri. I don't know where you got the A, but hey, that's cool. And currently starting his 9th term, which would mean he's starting into his 17th year as a representative in the House.
That's got to kill a few brain cells.
Oh my gosh. Ended the first day of the 2021 Congress prayer. That's the opening prayer. With a man and a woman. Yeah, that stirred the pot, as was well intended.
Oh, yeah. And
intended as a tribute to his female colleagues, he referred to it as a pun. And no, that's not a pun.
Well, even if you take him at his word that it was a pun, is the closing of a prayer a place for a pun?
But that's not even what a pun is.
No.
It wasn't even punny. Listen,
that's a pun.
If you know what a pun is, then you know that wasn't it. Nor was it the place for a pun, since no matter how you use it, whether it's in the noun or the verb, it's a joke exploiting. A joke exploiting. Is it the end of a prayer the right place to exploit anything? And what were you exploiting? The Hebrew phrase amen that went through Latin to us in its transcendence, and what we see it to be as today as so be it. Nothing gender there. No pun to even say.
So he didn't misgender it or add a gender to the end of it.
No.
He literally gendered a word that is non-gendered.
He did it intentionally to stir the pot, and stir the pot he did. There are a lot of people out there just beating it up, and a lot of people getting beat up for saying it's got Latin roots and it's Hebrew roots, and technically it's both. So there's not really any reason to beat somebody up if they say Latin, because it went from Hebrew to Latin to us, English, King's English, Americanized, whatever you want to say it is, it's gone through all of those roles. So beating somebody up over Latin or Hebrew, come on, that's just ridiculous.
Especially when the Latin is actually closer to our current form than the Hebrew original is. So,
yep.
And again, getting into the devil's in the details, beating up on minutia.
Yeah. He was deeply disappointed that his prayer has been misinterpreted and misconstrued by some to fit a narrative that stokes resentment and greater division among portions of our population. I wonder who those portions could have been referring to.
Donald Trump.
Could it have been referring to the conservatives in this country?
Oh, you mean the people who actually take religion seriously?
So are you excluding the conservatives from this because we're just a portion? Are you referring to the portion of people who still have a grasp on common sense? Is that the portion you're referring to?
The people who still think a prayer is a solemn thing, not a place for a joke?
Are you referring to the uneducable?
Uneducable. You mean the deplorables?
The deplorables.
The irredeemables?
Hey.
The bitter clingers?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's who you were referring to when you made that statement in your interview, Mr. Cleaver.
But, you know, that's a classic redirect.
Absolutely.
You know, he did something stupid.
Yep.
He got called out on it, and the typical redirect response is that, well, no, I did nothing wrong. It's all you people.
Well, it's like Nancy Pelosi shredding a State of the Union address. That's technically a felony, a federal felony.
Yeah, destroying government documents.
It's a government document, and she didn't have the right to tear it up regardless. And she did it on TV while we all watched the State of the Union, if you watched it, if you didn't watch it. And if not, you can catch her tearing it up
on video. If you didn't actually see the State of the Union when she did it, I'm sure everybody in the world has seen video clips of it in the aftermath.
You guys... There's a lot of you out there that's going to tell us and have told us that Donald Trump has made America look bad, while you're going to protect a speaker who committed a federal felony
on camera
while being videotaped. You're going to defend that. Really?
Well,
who's making America look good? Or bad?
There's people out there who defend Dianne Feinstein, even though she had a Chinese spy as a driver for 20 years.
Could you even say that without getting a hairball?
It leaves a nasty taste in my mouth, I will say.
Feinstein is a absolute not easy word to say.
And even more recently, you got Eric Swalwell on the Intelligence Committee, who apparently was stooping a Chinese spy back in the day.
Who actually thought she was interested in him for his looks. Yeah.
The level of absurdity in today's politics and even in society at large is, it is idiocracy level.
Oh, man.
People are going to be watering their crops with power drinks here before long.
Yeah, I agree. And now that we see his message and ending of his prayer, we understand it a little more clearly because Nancy and the Rules Committee chairman, I like this because it was written up chairman, James P. McGovern. I guess they're going to have to change that because you can't call him chairman anymore because it's chairperson. It'd have to be chairperson, right? Can't be gender specific because they're introducing a new code of conduct for the 117th Congress, which includes reforms that promote diversity and inclusivity.
Well, no, wait a minute. If it can't be chairman or chairwoman,
yeah,
how can it be a man and a woman?
Man, I don't know.
Are we going to have to start ending our prayers with a person?
So be it. Just end it with so be it. I guess that just solves everything.
Or we could always go Star Trek and make it so.
Listen, this new package that she's talking about, that chairperson, chairman, I don't know. His name is James. I'm assuming he's a he, but he might not be a he.
He may not identify as a he.
She. I'm not changing the pronoun unless he specifically tells me that he's a woman. He's still a he to me. So he and her, now I use that term loosely with Nancy, but they're going to honor all gender identities by changing pronouns and familial relationships in the House rules to be gender neutral. Yeah, you try that one out. Go ahead. See how well that works out for you in the future.
Idiots. Familial relationships. That's going to be mother, father, sister, brother.
Yeah.
So if you're referring to a parent How do you identify a which parent? I mean, you have two parents, typically. I mean, it takes two to tango. We all know that. So, is it a parent and then a male parent or a female parent or a gender fluid parent and a non-binary pansexual parent?
Well, quite frankly, if you're going to refer to a parent, then they need to be parenting, and most of them aren't, or a lot of them aren't. Too many of them aren't. So I don't know, refer to them as babysitters, because that's really what they are until a kid reaches that time when they need to launch. And unfortunately, many of you have a failure to launch your kid at a decent time, and they're still living in your house and you haven't figured out how the heck to get them out of the basement. That's because you don't know how to parent. Trust me, I launched pretty daggone quickly, and I wanted to launch.
You know, I had a friend that said that his kids were on the 1830 rule or the 2230 rule. He said by the time they turned 18, they had 30 days to get out the house.
Or pony up.
Unless they went to college, and then they switched over to the 2230. So 4 years of college, you graduate college, you got 30 days to hit the road.
Hit the road. That's the way it works. When you coddle them and you keep them around forever, guys, I don't know what you expect to grow. I don't even know what you expect to have in the future.
Yep.
I know what you'll expect to have, and you should expect to have this. You should understand that you aren't going to be in the home. They're putting you in the nursing home, and if you're not so lucky, you might live there comfortably. But if you are one of the lucky ones in one of those states where the governors threw all the COVID patients in the nursing homes, you could end up in a cemetery. Or ashes, unfortunately, because, hey, there was just too many people dying of the coronavirus, so we had to burn them quicker, faster, ashes to ashes. Listen, that's what's going to happen to y'all, because you're raising a bunch of kids who don't care about you.
Yeah, I've said for a long time that the more parents parent, the less police have to police.
Right. The more the police can be a servant. Actually be public servants instead of enforcers. Yeah, when you guys actually do your job, then we have productive kids. Productive kids go on to lead productive lives. They understand the concepts of personal responsibility, of self-reliance. But yeah, we still call mom and dad when we can. I can't anymore, but man, I sure would love to ask my dad a question of something that he taught me that I've forgotten.
I remember reading a while back that they said that the average age of kids moving out of the home these days was 28 to 30.
28 to 30. Unless you're working the farm with dad, you ain't got no business. And the reality is, you already had a house on the property of your own, and probably by the time you were 18.
Mm-hmm.
So if you stayed on the farm, you weren't living in the same house. You might have ate breakfast with mom and dad, because mom was always cooking, at least mine was, so I could always go there for breakfast, even after I had left 10 years.
But I mean, that's where we're headed these days. That's where this idiocracy is driving us. I mean, you go back to Obamacare. You can stay on your parents' insurance till you're 26. So you don't have to get a job, and you don't have to work your way up to a job that provides benefits. You just stay on mom and dad's insurance until you're 26.
Yeah, I love it. The young kids who've worked for me in the past, they got all kinds of money to blow. I'm paying tons of insurance premiums while they're living on mom and daddy's insurance, and I'm like, wait a second, that's not how that works. You're married. Oh, well, I still get to be on mom and dad's insurance until I'm out of college. What?
This is the participation trophy effect.
Oh my gosh, it sure is. And I mean, I guess the chair force is getting involved in all of this now.
Now, I'm ex-Air Force,
Absolutely,
wingnut.
So I can call him a chair forcer.
And read this today. Apparently this directive came out right before Christmas, December 23rd. But the Air Force has directed commanders to review official and unofficial unit emblems and other symbology to root out offensive language and imagery.
Ooh.
Now, of course, this ties right into the, renaming of bases that were named after Confederate generals and things like that.
Yep.
But, these are the top of the military who act like they've never been in the military.
Listen, I'm going to tell you what. If the Air Force is doing this, the Air Force already did this.
And this is not just official stuff.
They've already taken the teeth out of most of the Air Force. I'm sorry, guys, but it's true.
This is what they expect: a comprehensive review of official and unofficial emblems, morale patches, mottos, nicknames, coins, and other forms of unit recognition and identity. Now, my question is, whose standard are they using for offensive? Because I know a lot of military guys that would not find things offensive that most of the general population would. And I mean, the military culture is very
abrasive.
Well, I was going to say offensive, but yeah,
abrasive. I mean, come on.
Just the interagency back and forth alone. The Air Force, the Chair Force, the Marines eating crayons, and then you get the Coasties that everybody makes fun of. But we love the Coast Guard. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But the military is a different animal than the general population. Yet they've been doing this for a while. They've been turning it into a social program.
Yeah.
And trying out all these...
A kinder, gentler kind of...
you go all the way back to Don't Ask, Don't Tell, women in military academies and special forces units. And, again, nothing against women. I love women a lot. There's a lot of things that women can do and can do exceptionally well.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things that the typical woman... I'm not saying there's not somebody out there that's atypical that can compete with just about any man, but generally speaking, biology is going to limit what women can do in certain cases and what men can do. So, it's not apples and apples.
I don't know, man. I'm not misogynist in any way. I love it when my wife makes me a sandwich. But does she make a better sandwich? Or is it because I just like the fact that she's willing to make me a sandwich? Because I'm willing to make her a sandwich too.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, I do it all the time. She loves it when I do, just like I love it when she does.
There's certain things, again, getting back to the biology, which some people want to, I guess, completely ignore. But...
well, as a general rule...
Men and women are different.
As a general rule. Men have a tendency to be stronger than women.
More body mass.
General rule.
More muscle density.
That doesn't mean it is the rule.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely some...
There are some women out there that are pretty stout.
There's some stout women out there. There's some effeminate men out there.
Absolutely.
Hey,
I don't have a problem with a woman in the society working in a not specifically typical gender job from the past. As long as they can keep up and do the work, hey.
But
we shouldn't have to bend any rules for it, right?
And that's where you get into these words like inclusivity. Everybody should be included, whether they're capable or not. It's like the myth of the wage gap. It's there, yes, but it's not apples to apples.
No.
Just like, any comparison between men and women is never going to be apples to apples.
Wage equality.
Okay.
and equal to work equality. Okay? I was a public servant, firefighter, EMS. I had female partners, many of them, and they were great partners. But as a standard, if I needed them to carry a 225-pound man out of a burning building, they weren't going to make it happen, Captain. Sorry. None of the women that I worked with was going to tote a 225-pound man with all their bunker gear out of a burning house. It's just not going to happen. But I had plenty of male counterparts who could. Did we lessen the requirements? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, as we're transitioning to this more gender neutral or gender inclusive world,
to include transgender and pansexual and all
whatever
that.
you want to call yourself, that's cool. As we're transitioning, the burden of physical labor falls on who? In that instance, it fell on the men.
Police officers is another one. You see videos all the time of a female police officer getting her ass handed to her by somebody who's bigger than her.
Yep.
Now, to be fair, seen some male cops get their asses handed to them too.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to things like domestic violence situations, de-escalating things, women are generally better at that, generally, than men.
Yeah.
They're more empathetic, and so there are things in any job where there's going to be certain skill sets that apply.
Yeah.
And there's going to be certain people who have one skill set and people are going to have another skill set.
Absolutely.
The problem is when you try to equate the two.
Well,
and try to blend it all together and
soften it, make it prettier, make it less gritty. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you're looking for in the future. The only thing I can think of is you're looking for shells in Taco Bell. That's what I think you're actually looking for. You're looking for Demolition Man. That's what that.
Well,
you're not looking for Demolition Man. You're looking for the scenario that surrounded Demolition Man. But what you're going to get is Demolition Man.
I mean, we're literally living a large part of Demolition Man right now.
Absolutely. We're getting closer and closer, and this pandemic that we've experienced over the last year is pushing us closer and closer to a greater corporate world with lesser choices.
Oh yeah, it's definitely pushing out the small
mom and
entrepreneurs, mom and pops.
Hey, I mean, if Walmart didn't do it already through the 90s and the 2000s, coming up to 2010 and onward, if Walmart didn't destroy enough small businesses on their own, the pandemic and all the actions of a majority of the politicians in various states, they created an even larger gap.
And we won't even get into the whole, toilet paper hoarding and the 3 shells.
Yeah, you ought to just go with the 3 shells. I think that's great. And get a bidet and do away with toilet paper.
And of course, the hygiene, the focus on hygiene from Demolition Man definitely relates to what's going on today.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. There's a lot of dumbing down that's going on right now. Mm-hmm. And language is part of it.
Sure.
The English language is a very intricate language that you can do a lot with.
Oh man, there are some serious linguistic gymnastics with the American language,
and that's just it. It's so oxymoronic. On one hand, they're using linguistic gymnastics to change the meanings of words and how people think of things, and on the other hand, they're literally eliminating whole subsets of words and pronouns and things that are no longer acceptable very Orwellian, newspeakish, but it's just words are something that
Words have meanings.
and that's I've said that
And they
for
should
forever.
always have meanings.
A man has a meaning, and it has nothing to do with a woman.
A woman has a meaning too, and it has no correlation between amen at all. So, Ward, Beaver, the Cleaver family, Mr. Reverend.
A lot of this has to do with our education system.
Absolutely.
And our education system is definitely not doing its job.
What do you mean?
And it's doing its job even more poorly via the internet.
What do you mean? Like 74% of Americans don't even know how many amendments are in the Bill of Rights?
Yeah, that would be a good start. I mean, government civics.
Percent.
Three out of 4 people don't know how many amendments are in the Bill of Rights.
74% don't know how many are in the first 10 amendments. I don't understand what's happening.
And more than a third, 37%, can't name a single right protected by the First Amendment. And there are several. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion.
I get it. You might not know the 4th. Maybe you don't know the 5th. I get it. But the first? Really? Or how about you don't really know the words to the second? The Second Amendment. Yes. I'm going to plug our new poster.
Second Amendment explained.
The Second Amendment explained. Expanded upon so it's more understandable. That is our new poster. Yes.
Coming soon.
You may not understand all of it. But certainly you understand the gist of what's in the First Amendment, right? Certainly you do. Certainly you don't fall in the 37%. If you do fall in that 37%, you need to watch more of our videos because we actually talk about those things. We enlighten.
There's 3 branches of government, right?
Yes. Yes, there is.
And one would think that everybody knows it. I mean, you've got the executive branch, which is the president.
Yep.
You've got the legislative branch, which is Congress.
Yep.
And the judicial branch, which is the courts.
Yep.
26% of Americans don't know all three branches of government.
It's like I don't understand. I really don't.
I really want to know what schools are teaching, because it's obviously not government or civics.
No. And listen, I get it. It's not all schools. It's not all teachers. But the reality is, you're working with a curriculum that's been handed down to you, and you're dumbing your students down. You are. If you've worked in the education system for the last 20 years, and you can't look at your current curriculum and say, we're really dumbing our children down, you're part of the problem.
I mean,
kinder and gentler, awesome.
Did a Google search, which I don't recommend using Google.
DuckDuckGo.
But did a Google search on idiocracy, and every article,
everyone
that you saw on the Google results was trying to
denigrate,
to tie Donald Trump into the idiocracy mold.
I just don't. I don't see the tie. Listen, neither one of us are politician guys.
No.
We'll get that straight off the cuff right now. It's a necessary evil in government, okay?
Get him, Cujo.
That's Hank, by the way. One of these days we'll get Hank on video just so you can see Hank. But you heard him. But thanks, Hank. You totally ruined my train of thought, and it was a good train. We're not politician guys. So being a staunch supporter of one over the other, you're not going to see it because we don't do it. What we do is we decide which is the lesser of two evils.
And we look at things through policy. Not words, but actions.
What have you done? Well, I can tell you the things that Joe Biden has done in the last 50 years technically, but I don't really know what he did as a county politician. But I do know what he's done as a federal politician, and I'm going to tell you what. The worst thing that I ever saw out of Joe Biden was his crime bill.
Oh, 1994.
That was a travesty. And that was a Democrat utilizing a Democrat administration to push a Democrat agenda upon the Second Amendment and to punish people and incarcerate them for minor crimes.
Mostly minorities. No, I won't say mostly, but
a majority,
heavily minority.
Absolutely. And we can look back on it now and Monday morning quarterback it and tell you that is the case. Did he intend to do that? I don't know. You have to be the judge of that, but I can see him buddied up with Senator Byrd. And Senator Byrd, I mean, you might as well have said he was the Grand Dragon of the national Ku Klux Klan. That's how much of a racist Byrd was.
Now, he never officially held that position.
Nobody might as well have been.
Right. I mean, he was definitely the highest profile Klan member as a United States Senator.
So, you have to decide. We've already decided. We have decided that Donald Trump is the better man for the job. I think the majority of Americans had decided that as well. But the news media has spoken. And it's clear cut. That we're just bitter clingers.
It's funny because, I graduated high school a few years ago.
A few?
A few.
Oh, come on now, be honest.
But,
of course, I graduated before you, so hey.
So we won't get into the specifics there. But
I will. 1983. Thank you very much. I don't care. Now you know.
So that puts me class of 84. And 30 years ago, the United States handed out more diplomas than any country in the world.
Yep.
Today, we fall into 36th place.
Sir, 36th place.
So there's 35 other countries that graduate more people than we do. Now, to put that in context, 35 countries graduate more people than we do.
That's pretty sad.
Now, there's only 2 countries that have a larger population than we do. China and India. So, could that have something to do with the 74% who don't know how many amendments are in the Bill of Rights?
Yep.
Or the 26% that don't know the 3 branches of government?
Yep.
I mean, it's... I'm speechless.
Well, I mean, it's the first time in history that you're more likely to die from an opioid overdose than you are in a car accident.
And it's not just education.
Yeah.
I've said for a long time that we're victims of our own success.
Yeah.
There's an old saying that, hard times breed strong people. Strong people make good times breed weak people, and weak people bring hard times.
Yep.
According to the Pentagon, 71% of our young adults are ineligible to serve in the U.S. military.
Yep.
Because they're either too dumb, too fat, or have a criminal background.
Yep.
Now, too dumb? We've already discussed our education system. Too fat? Well, that's DoorDash, Uber Eats, fast food. Fast food workers are keeping the nation fed. No. And criminal background. That goes right back to the 94 crime bill.
Yep. The average American spends 86 hours a month using a smartphone. 86 hours a month. 45% of U.S. teenagers are online almost constantly.
And a third of them haven't read a book in the last year. An actual book.
Yep. And just random, there were 16,000 official complaints about human feces submitted in the city of San Francisco. 16,000 official complaints. That's what people are complaining about in San Francisco.
And apparently their complaints are legitimate because...
upon investigation, over 300 piles were found.
Of human feces.
Yep.
In downtown San Francisco.
Yeah.
There is so much material to work with when you start talking about the devolution of society these days.
Yeah. The absurd now being accepted as a norm.
There are three things that are necessary for life. You need food, you need water, and you need shelter from the elements.
Yep.
Now today, you need a cell phone, you need a car, you need air conditioning, you need a refrigerator, these are all necessities now.
Yep.
You need fast food. You need a giant grocery chain like Walmart, or you need truck drivers. If truck drivers ever went on strike, 3 days. 3 days worth of stock is in most grocery stores.
Shoot, you're lucky. Some of them are only 24 to 36 hours.
Yeah.
But you know what? We only have 12 years left to correct global warming. It's our World War II.
That sounds like AOC.
That is who you're paying to represent yourself. That right there.
And it's in this new democratic world,
mm-hmm.
which, the absurd is now the accepted norm.
Absolutely.
You have toxic masculinity. You have white privilege. Oh, there's a new one now. Toxic individualism.
Yep.
Everything's a crisis. Everything's toxic. Everything's just absurd. Science. Follow the science.
Follow the science.
You can't question established, accepted science.
Yep.
The very core of science is to question.
Critical thinking has been lost.
Common sense is definitely not as common as the term would imply.
No.
And we have a deficit in education. We have a deficit in personal responsibility. It's...
Responsibility is a dirty word.
Oh, yeah. And adulting is hard.
Adulting is hard.
That's actually a phrase these days.
Yep.
Adulting is hard.
No kidding.
That's
no kidding.
It's like being woke. Can you come up with a more absurd word for a more absurd movement?
What, you're not woke?
Now, don't get me wrong.
Close. I'm awake.
Yeah, we need a great awakening in this country.
You're darn right I'm awake.
But it damn sure ain't the woke variety.
I've been awake for quite a while. I've been awake since I started paying my own bills. I've been awake, good Lord, since I held the hand of my first dying victim. I've been awake for a while, but I'm never going to be woke.
We had somebody asking a comment the other day, when are we going to say enough is enough? And the problem is, there are a lot of us who have been saying enough is enough for a long time now.
Yep.
The real question is, when will the majority of Americans say enough is enough? And right now, the majority is dumbed down, fat, and I guess on parole or probation.
Apathetic.
Complacent.
They don't want to put any effort into it anymore.
Because adulting is hard. And idiocracy reigns supreme.
Yep. So the next time someone says, well, Donald Trump had something to do with the dumbing down of America, I just want you to ask yourself, would a guy who's a billionaire, yeah, I get it, maybe he had some privilege in there, maybe dad had some money and connections, you can take it all away from him and say he's ignorant and he's stupid, or you can at least give him props for being successful financially. Was he successful in a lot of other endeavors? I don't know. But I do know that statistically, as a president, he was more successful than many of the past administrations have ever been.
I would venture to say most of the past administrations, at least modern administrations.
But we spent every waking minute of his administration trying to disprove his administration. That he didn't get elected, that he's impeachable, that he was colluding.
Oh, he's a white supremacist and a Russian plant.
With unfound, proven allegations. They were all unfounded. Every one of them.
But you know, and I will take down the tinfoil Stetson for 1 second, because there is a school of thought out there that the election of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris was the powers that be showing the American people who's still in power. You know, whether you call it the deep state, the swamp, the Illuminati. There you go. But,
whichever way your tinfoil hat tips.
You know, how do you explain a doddering old fool winning a presidential election from his basement?
I think it's probably the best suggestion, and probably going to find out in years to come that it was legit, that the election was stolen by big corporations to maintain their control over the people. I don't know. Only time will tell.
But, I mean, if you were an author writing the book of, say, 2020, for example, and you took that to an editor and a publisher, they would laugh. Yeah. Laugh in your face at the
absurdity.
I mean, unless you intended to write a tragic comedy. it's I mean, just the absurdity is on so many levels, on so many fronts, and just so jump the shark, left field, way out there, and yet so many just kind of take it as that's how it is.
Yeah. That's exactly what they're doing. And they're just trying to sweep it all under the rug. Listen, I've told this to people forever. Relationship advice by Patrick James. Every time you sweep something under the rug, continues to build a mound under the rug. Eventually, and this was taught to me by my mother, eventually you're going to have trouble making it over that hill, because the mound turns into a hill, turns into a mountain. Before you know it,
you're going to trip over it.
Yeah, everything you've swept under the rug is just too much of a chore anymore. And that's where we're going in America today. as you continue to allow people to sweep it all under the rug, you're never going to make it up that hill.
But, people just want things to get back to normal.
We just want kinder and gentler. We just want unity.
Equity, inclusivity, a bunch of buzzwords that are literally meaningless in the context that they use them.
Before you can get unity, you got to have commonality of understanding.
Or at least just basic respect.
And right now this is so completely uncommon what's going on today. It is, there's nothing common about it. And until we find the common ground to stand upon, there's never going to be any unity.
It's the euphemism they use today, the new normal. There's absolutely nothing normal about it, but hey, new normal, that's catchy.
We had common ground once upon a time. I'm not exactly sure when those tides turned specifically, but I do know that we can wind it back to Woodrow Wilson and him telling us to not look at the preface to the Declaration of Independence, but to look at us all as a collective. He was trying to pull out the individualism of America.
That's now toxic.
And this whole country was built upon sovereign rights. So you can say, our founders, they were slave owners. Yeah, maybe so. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know, because I didn't live then, so I don't really know how many slaves they had or how they treated those slaves. But I do have their words, and words have meanings. And when Thomas Jefferson specifically wrote that all men are created equal, I know, I get it. It's gender specific, but in the context, it was all people are created equal with certain unalienable creator bestowed rights. He meant all people. That's what he meant. That's what those words mean.
Mm-hmm.
And words have meanings. There is no reason for anybody to feel less equal than another person. There's no reason for it, except if you allow it to happen. When you allow somebody to make you feel inferior, that's not on them. That's on you. And that's just the way it is.
And words do have meaning, but words today have become largely meaningless, probably due to our faltering education system in part. But Congress will use words like invest. We're investing in the future. No, you're spending taxpayer dollars. An investment is a risk. An investment is gambling.
Yep.
But when you say you're investing in our future, that sounds good.
Listen, I think, investing in the future is great. I think those that want to invest their paychecks in the future of America should be able to do so. And those that don't should be able to do so.
It's like equity. People hear the word equity, and of course you think equality. But equity is actually nothing like equality.
Mm-mm.
Equity is proportional. Equality is
across the board.
Across the board. Equity is this person didn't get this, so they deserve more of that than you do because you had more than they did. And
that's the new equity, what he's explaining. Yeah. Equity really means that you get out what you put in. That's just the way it is. If you put X amount in a savings account and you have a savings account that gives you X amount of interest, you're only going to get back what you put in plus what they say you're going to get back. That's it. That's your equity in it.
You know, look, it's like owning
buy a house, a
it's
car.
like owning a home. You know, you paid so much, you have that much equity in your house.
That's right. You bought a house for $150,000. You put $20,000 into it. You finance the rest. You only have $20,000 equity in that house till you pay more on it.
But that's not how equity is used today.
No.
You know, equity means that, you know, women weren't part of this, so we have to artificially include more women in this to get equity.
Yep.
You know, minorities didn't do this or didn't have access to this, so now they have to get extra access to offset what they didn't get before in order for it to be equitable.
But see, what happens is you have to take it away from somebody to give it. And I've never owned a slave. And you could say all day long that I have white privilege. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I don't actually recognize my white privilege because I look at everybody the same as a book. And until I open the cover, I don't even know what you are. So I just treat you as all books. I love all books. I open the cover. I might not like that book. That's okay. I don't have to like you. You don't have to like me. But you can't take away from one and give it to another without hurting the others. And that's what you're doing. By demanding something, it has to come from somebody else. And I didn't do anything to dictate that you should take something from me. So in that context, you have to look at it again and look at it from a different perspective. We all are created equal. And you get out of it what you're willing to put into it. If you don't want to be a business owner, hey, don't be a business owner. I absolutely 100% understand. I get it.
But, you know, if you want to really know the truth, the ultimate minority is the individual.
Yeah.
You know, you may look like somebody else. You may sound like somebody else. You may celebrate the same traditions as somebody else. But you're not exactly like anybody else.
No, we're all individuals. Absolutely.
And that's
By the
what
grace of God.
That's what makes this whole idea of toxic individualism even more absurd, because it is definitely geared towards the collective.
Yep.
The, you know, equitable redistribution of things because of things that happened, you know, before you were born.
Yep.
And it's just, it is idiocracy.
Yes, it is. So at the end of the day, we appreciate you following along. I know this was a long video. It is the extended version. There is a shorter version. You can watch that. It'll be up on Rumble. It'll be up on YouTube, both of them. So we appreciate your time. We appreciate all the considerations you give to our perspectives. And in the meantime, just remember, if you want peace,
Prepare for war.
because that's what it's going to take. Later, guys.
Peace.